Good evening, everybody. We're gonna wait just a couple more minutes and to make sure we give folks time to join us. So I know most of you have been here, but for those who may not have been here before, Roots and Roads Community Hospice Foundation, our vision is to transform the end-of-life experience into the final act of living well, whatever that means for each of us. But the way we go about that in our work is 3 or 4 parts now. We provide financial assistance to hospice patients of limited means and their families for basic necessities like housing, transportation, food, caregiving, things that aren't covered by health insurance. So that's what we were sort of established 23 or so years ago. That was kind of the dream of what we were established to do, and we continue to do that today. And soon on the heels of that, we've probably been doing this for about 22 years now, is community education around end-of-life issues, what we're gathered for here tonight. And then we also last year launched our online resource called the Crosswalk, which helps people navigate end of life beginning at time of diagnosis with things like questions you might want to ask your doctor, right? What to figure out what sort of treatment or no treatment or palliative care, whatever it is. And it walks people through all the way to bereavement, to everything in between, including tips for caregivers. We have a lot of healthcare partners whose staff actually use it because they're not all experts in end of life either. And so we would love for you to visit our website and look at the Crosswalk and give us feedback. And maybe there are, I have no doubt, things that we are missing, elements that we would love you to tell us about. So okay, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our Director of Community Engagement, David Fife. David?
Thanks so much, Julie. We want to begin by thanking so many of you. We have these folks listed here who donated to make this evening's session possible. And so we are so grateful, not only for this donation, but your support all through the year and your participation in our events each month. You enrich the conversation. We're so grateful for all the ways that you support our work. And then we also want to thank our series sponsors, the Legacy Foundation of Southeast Arizona and an Anonymous Family Foundation have supported this whole year's series of Carrying Our Grief, along with some other work that we do as well. So we're very grateful for their support that has enabled us to be able to bring so many different components and voices into this conversation about grief and loss and bereavement. And then we have a number of individual session sponsors, Right at Home, in-home care and assistance, sponsored something last year as well as a session this year. Pima Council on Aging as well will sponsor a session later this year, and they also supported last year's efforts as well. And then tonight, we are especially grateful to Harmony Community Healthcare. They have been longtime supporters of Roots and Roads, and we're so grateful that their support makes tonight's documentary and conversation possible. Following the film, Murray Flagg will lead us in a time to ask questions and to reflect on speaking grief. You can see Murray's work history and background. I encourage you to read it. I won't rehearse it verbally right now, but I do want to say that Murray is a person who is tremendously generous with his time and is dedicated to supporting those who are bereaved in the community. We're honored to have him join us tonight and to have the ongoing support of Harmony Community Healthcare. And now I think we're going to begin by showing the film. Let's just take a moment and be silent and take in what we just heard and watched. And then Murray Flagg will lead us in a time of reflection.
My friends, first of all, let me start by saying thank you for being here. There are a great many people who will not even attend an event such as this because in our society especially, we tend to try to ignore the fact that life begins with birth and it ends with death, and there's no escaping it. So thank you for being here. I want to thank you. As someone who works with folks who are grieving every day of my life, I want to thank you for that. I also want to recommend to you, while we don't know the why it happens, we do now understand the why of how we grieve in some ways. I want to recommend to you a book, if you have not heard of it, called The Grieving Brain by Dr. Francis McConnell. Not McConnell, O'Connor, Francis O'Connor, who teaches at the university. Some of you may have even heard her speaking around town. If you have not, I recommend it to you because this is a magnificent work that answers the question, why do I react the way I do? Why am I going through some of the physical, emotional, spiritual things that I'm going through in my grieving process? Because we understand some of the things that happens to us biologically that impacts it. And so some of the whys can be answered. The ultimate why of why it happened to me and not somebody else, those questions we don't have the answer to. But Mary Frances, in her book, The Grieving Brain, provides some really powerful understanding to help us understand how the grief process works, what's going on in our brain. And she has a new one coming out soon called The Grieving Body, because it's not just an emotional, social, spiritual activity. It's also a physical reality, as many of you will know yourself from that. The impact of our grief physically on us through the stress, through the release of hormones, can be very, very difficult to manage. But if we can understand it, it gives us a little better other handle. I would also recommend to you that if you know those who are going through hard grief journey, one of the things in my experience of a fair number of years now is that a good grief group that matches you and the way you can take the support can be very beneficial. Like the one woman talked about, the TAPS group for military folks. But if you find a grief group, because these are people who are journeying the same journey, different, but many of the things there, and having someone who understands, having somebody who feels and can share that, and you know you're not alone. One of the really difficult things of difficult, intimate, powerful grief is we often feel like we're alone. So I want to commend those things to you before we open it up and start sharing. So rather than me talking, I do have some points that I'll bring up if we need to, but I want to throw it open. First of all, what's your reaction? And was there something that stood out to you that really spoke to you or prompted a question? And someone on the group or myself may be able to shed some light on that. So let me throw it open. Is anybody ready to share?
Hi.
Yes.
Hi, thanks. Um, Thank you guys for the presentation. I actually myself I really enjoyed the video, and I can definitely relate to that, and I try to be very supportive to my friends, family, and I'm more might be a little different. I do directly ask the people how they feel about the person they left has left them and that they love. I try to tell people to continue acknowledging their lost one, their loved one. Um, I lost my father about 8 years ago, and I still talk him into existence. Um, like you say, the physical, the spiritual is still here. Everything in this house is here. I'm living in the house. My mom, I just lost her 6 months ago. So things have to be done. I have to take care of their affairs. So every day is, to me, they're still here. They're, you know, visually, I can see them, I can hear them. So that what makes it easy for me. It really makes it very easy for me to acknowledge they're gone. But also, it's like daily, I still see them, hear them, and it actually makes me function very well. Um, I'm one of 6 kids, but I'm the one that they have to, rely on to handle everything. And but they check on me because I'm in our parent talk,
Yeah.
and a lot of the video really resonate. Um, the emotion, the spiritual, but yeah, I mean,
Well, I commend you for being open and sharing with folks and sharing your own thing. And one of the things that's important is to memorialize those that we love. And we do that by sharing by those things and asking the question, using the name of the person. Because yes, there are going to be times where the person's going to feel sad. But
yeah,
as they said in the film, they're going to feel sad anyway.
true,
And
true,
with you acknowledging that says, you know what? They really were here. Their
yeah,
life was meaningful and
yeah,
they're not forgotten.
yeah.
They're not forgotten.
And I feel like I honor them more. I honor them more if I continue keeping their spirit alive, also by teaching the next generation. This is what grandma, this is what grandpa did. This is how we're making it. So
Excellent.
the legacy stays on.
Great. Thank you. Yes. I see that Ellen had her hand up. So Ellen, you have to unmute. Okay. I say that to Ellen the way I did, folks, because Ellen works with me. So Ellen's a good friend. So if I sounded a little directed there, it's only because Ellen and I have a very close relationship. So Ellen, are you okay? Well, we're going to go with Sarah. Well, so Sarah, please.
Yes, thank you. I really enjoyed the film. I lost my sister to suicide in 2019, and some of the things that have come up for me are we did not have a great relationship, and that can be isolating in itself. People wonder, well, why are you so sad? Like, you know, uh, and I am the only one in my family that acknowledges her death, which is very isolating. Um, and, people don't want to ask you about it. They don't want to ask me about her life. So it feels like in some ways it doesn't matter, but it does. And I really appreciated, there were a couple things in the film. Secondary losses I thought was really interesting. I think that my life has been impacted by secondary losses much more so than her actual death. It's the relationships that I have with other people in my family. There are just other pieces of it that impact me more than her actual physical death. And then the other thing that I really loved was grief is about humanity, because I feel like there are so many people that choose to not say anything, and it's so hurtful. That's been really hurtful in my grieving process, for people to not acknowledge what I've been through. And everybody has their own reasons, and it's uncomfortable, and there's so much stigma attached to suicide, but it feels incredibly lonely when people don't acknowledge it. So I'm working on a project called Griefly and that's in development, and I'm really excited about it. And my interest is specifically in connecting people one-on-one, because I find that while support groups can be really helpful, there's also, for people like me, I'm an introvert and highly sensitive person. I much prefer one-to-one interactions, and I think that can be really healing. So anyway,
Good.
thank you. It's been wonderful.
Thank you. And Sarah, you make it's really a very, very large point in grief and in understanding grief. We think of grief as a loss, but the truth is, no death of an intimate friend, family member, pet, whatever it is one loss. It is an amalgamation of losses. We talk about it as if it was just, well, you lost them. Well, no, in losing them, you lost relationship. You lost relationships with others. You lost society. You lost the things that you did together that now you don't do or you don't do together. So it's a multiplicity of losses. And one of the other things that especially is powerful in that is an anticipatory grief. That's the grief that we begin suffering when we have the diagnosis and we know that the person is going to go, that we're going to lose them. And we start grieving at that moment. And we grieve through that whole journey. And then the event happens and we have post-event grief. One doesn't cancel out the other, but we have them. And we need to understand that there is, and that's why they did such a great job in the film of making the point. It's like throwing a stone into a pond. There's one hole that it makes, but then as you know, the ripples go all the way out to the end of the pond. And scientists tell us that the energy goes out into where we can't even see it. So there are that multiplicity of losses and that connection. And I commend you for working on your program to put it together. And I just want to, I'll throw in my 2 cents from me. If there's any way I can be of benefit to help you with that, folks at Roots and Roads know how to get a hold of me and contact me, and I would be glad to lend you any help that I can in putting that together, because it's a great thing, because that one-on-one work, and sometimes it's a therapist, sometimes it's somebody who's walked the same journey, and so I commend you for that.
Thank you.
There's, I don't know the gentleman's name who just put his hand up, that's got the dark glasses and is now leaning on his cheek.
Oh, it's Alan.
Alan, okay.
I just have to comment on the speaker before the last one. I'm in hospice work and I'm with Roots and Roads, but it's really interesting. I got to go to Dia de los Muertos in Oaxaca. And we talk about making it easier in our organization to talk about death. And that's one of the big things we do with the public, and going to events and talking and trying to share things. It was transformational for me to go to that city for 5 days and see everybody celebrating their ancestors with the decorated graves and all the fiesta, the celebration of life. If anybody ever has a chance to do that, it's transformational to go down there and see that from the smallest kid to the oldest person there, they have an understanding of that. And it goes throughout their whole society there. Everybody knows that, and everybody celebrates that. And everybody looks forward to talking about their elders once a year at that time, probably all year long, but they celebrate it on the Day of the Dead. It's amazing.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. Yeah, it is. And again, there are many cultural aspects in things. One of the things that I always share with people, the Inuit peoples traditionally, folks up in Alaska area and that, traditionally, when a woman would lose her husband, for 1 year, she was expected to do nothing but grieve. They would take care of her house, they would cook her meals, they would take care of her clothes, they would watch her children for 1 year for her just to be given over to her grief. And the item where they mention in the film is so great. But they don't ask somebody what you need. So many of you, I'm sure, have lost someone and you're there and somebody says, well, what can I do for you? I don't know what I need you to do for me. Right now, I'm trying to figure out how to keep breathing, how to stand up, how to get out of bed. I'm trying to remind myself I need to take a shower. I don't know what I need, but I love that board with the list of things on it. You know, I love the board with a list of things on it. Take it to them and say, you know, if anyone want to punch one of these and I'll be there. Or I have a friend who, when someone loses it, says they call them 3 weeks later. And that's the other key point. You know, for those first few weeks, while we're doing the institutional grieving, where we're taking care of all the things, the death certificate and funeral and all of these other things, and everybody's around. But all of a sudden you come to 4 weeks later and everybody's gone home, all these things, and now you're there by yourself. or the person's there by themselves, or they're trying to deal with the children and those things, to then go and say, hey, I just brought you a brand new cake, or I'm coming to mow your lawn. That's great. I see someone has their hand up, and she's wearing a brown sweater, and she's leaning on her cheek at the moment, and I don't know who that is.
Elsa.
Elsa.
Yeah. And excuse me for not knowing, Elsa, but I'm not seeing any names on the pictures tonight. So,
That's fine. It's a wonder I knew how to raise my hand.
but you did beautiful.
I just wanted to, and this has been very enlightening and a lot of depth, a lot of awareness to come forward. One thing I don't think I heard was how important it is, from my perspective, to understand the other person's view of death and what happens, and not to impose my understanding of that in every situation that I come upon, to really respect the other person's view of that. So I just wanted to bring that forward.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Because yes, one of the things to do, they talked about the power of listening. David Augsburger, who was the dean of the School of Psychiatry at Fuller Seminary, in writing one of his, said, this feeling of being truly listened to, truly listened to, is so akin to feeling loved that most people can't tell the difference. Again, let me say that the feeling of being truly listened to is so akin to that of feeling loved that most of us can't tell the difference. And you're right. Listening without trying to provide necessarily an answer, was certainly not telling somebody, is one of the things that happens if we believe in life beyond this existence. And there are people who don't, and say, well, you're going to see them in the future. Well, if a person doesn't subscribe to that, that's not comforting, right? But where we listen, and that reminds me, if you know the Jewish practice of sitting Shiva, when you come into a Jewish house where there's loss and you sit Shiva, you don't say anything until the person who's grieving speaks to you, traditionally. You come and just sit with them. To listen, to be there, to sit, is such a powerful thing. Thank you, Elsa, because that's really true. Listening and not trying to answer a question maybe that even hasn't even been answered, and trying to be caring and supportive, but listen to where they're coming from. And then you can respond. Thank you. Someone else. Anything at all. Because remember, the thing, with old preachers, which I happen to be one as well as an educator, you leave the space open for us, we'll fill it up with words.
I think Rosie might have a comment.
Yes.
Rosie.
Yes, Rosie.
I am a volunteer coordinator for Arista Hospice, and I would love to show this to my volunteers. Is that a possibility?
David's shaking his head yes.
So we
Yes.
will, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead, Jennifer.
So we will be sharing both the recording of our discussion tonight. We cannot share the film, but it is available online, and we'll send you the link in the post-event email that you all get.
Excellent. Anyone else? Yes. There was a gentlewoman with
Phyllis.
it just said, "Oh, that's you." Yes.
I am a volunteer for hospice, and I do mostly grief support.
Mhm.
And, I really love it because really I listen. That's what I do. I listen. They can tell their story to me a million times. I don't care. By the time, a month or two goes by, if the family was there, they don't need to hear the story. If the and even if they were there, they don't want to hear it anymore. But they can tell it to me 100 times, a million times. I don't care.
Mhm.
last year I had a person that I worked with. You know, normally you're supposed to get 13 months support, but I was with her over 2 years because she needed that support. And I heard from my coordinator that she told the chaplain at my hospice that I volunteer for that I saved her life, which was, you know, that was wonderful for me. But the way that I did that was I listened. I listened. You know, you just need to meet somebody where they are, and they need to talk, and you need to listen.
Yeah. Blessings on you, Phyllis. You know, we worry sometimes about saying the right thing or the wrong thing, but listening is never wrong. Listening is never. We have another hand up, and I'm guessing you're wearing a red top and your glasses are on top of your head. Are you unmuted now?
Yes, I'm unmuted. Hi, my name is Valerie Warner, and I also am with Arista Hospice and have learned a lot through this series, and I'm so grateful and so thankful that it's here. At the moment, I am a student of social work at Arizona State University here in Tucson, and I would love to have either you or someone from Roots and Roads come out and speak to our class, because the social us as students are getting none of this, and I really, really think it's important that somehow ASU School of Social Work, both Bachelor of Science in Social Work and or Bachelor of Social Work and Masters of Social Work students, be able to be exposed to this and learn, and hopefully feel so happy about it that they will maybe even come and join the group of learning and passing on the knowledge and the humanity to the families that grieve.
Well, I can't speak for David and Roots and Roads. And I know I could give you the answer, but I'll let them give you the answer to you. But Brianna Henderson, who's the owner of Harmony, pays me to go and do those things. So all you got to do is get your instructors, give them my note and share with them. I'll be there as quick as we can get it on the schedule. And I'm going to then turn it over to David, because I know I can tell you what he's going to say. David?
Yeah, I think that we would love the invitation to continue on with this conversation. So please reach out to Murray, reach out to me at Roots and Roads, and we can figure out a way to have a time for this kind of discussion. So thank you so much for asking that and for being here tonight. I wanted to lift up a comment in the chat. It's from Linda, who said, I found the comment from the sister that many people support them in the first few weeks, but it is later, after all the paperwork and helping family, that she would appreciate people to contact and support her much later. It's that lifting up the idea that it's important at the beginning, but grief goes on, and it can be very isolating when we all of a sudden don't have others around us who are willing to listen and be there and just be present.
Yeah, one of the keys is people get busy with their own life. That's one of the things that's difficult. You know, life goes on. As the one gentleman said, he went out the next day, there was mail in the mailbox. Well, for other people, it goes on. And without us consciously remembering and thinking, and even make a note on your calendar. So I say to people, make a note on your calendar a month, 2 months away, to remind you to check in with them. Because that way, we don't get so wrapped up in living our life day to day that we forget about that person who's trying to find a new life. Not because we don't want to, but because life intrudes upon us. So that's a good way to do that. And I see Chuck has his hand up.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't catch the name for the woman who was talking about her social work program. But I would love to also have an opportunity to speak to your class, because my life has been full of grief from the very beginning. And, I almost see I'm a professional in that regard because of so much change in my life. There was never the stability in the very beginning, as I lost families and home, and but I feel so blessed because that history of experience and that has led me to growth that has been so profound. I'm very involved in the organization that's dealt with near-death studies. And it's certainly something, and I've been in social work programs myself, educationally. And so I think those students could really benefit from seeing the path that I provide. And I do professional presentations so that, is available to you if you choose. And however we can get in contact.
Thank you so much, Chuck. And thank you to everyone, and especially to Murray as well. We've reached our time, and so we're going to have to stop the conversation at this point. But this is an ongoing conversation that we're going to be having throughout the year. So each month, please join us again so that we can look at so many of these facets of grief and loss from different perspectives.
So next month, we're super excited to have Dr. Ken Doka. Some of you may have heard about him or read some of his work before, but he's going to focus on the mind-body connection, grief's effect somatically, right? And I know for me, my loss goes right into my stomach kind of thing. So I'm super excited to have him join us. And it'll be earlier because I think he's a little bit ahead of us in the time zone. So instead of 6 p.m., it'll be at 5 p.m. And we will send out, if you're on our list, which you probably are now that you've been to some of these, you'll get a reminder about that. And next slide, please.
On April 18th, we will have Rachel Blackketter from Tunidito talk to us not only about how children grieve that's different from adults, but then also how we can show up for kids, how we can support children who are grieving in our informal relationships. So please go ahead and register for that as well, and it's upcoming in April.
I'm going to try to get through this without coughing. So as David said earlier, we are very grateful for everyone who's donated so far to the education sessions. We did want to just share, there's a couple of ways that we have partnered with different programs where you can have portions of your shopping, like your everyday shopping, groceries and things, that a portion can come to Roots and Roads. And so we are partners with Walmart Spark Good. So if you shop on Walmart.com or Walmart Plus, you can choose Roots and Roads as your charity of choice. And then we are also part of the Fry's Community Rewards. So I believe you can go online and select Roots and Roads so that every time you do your grocery shopping at Fry's, a portion of the proceeds can come to Roots and Roads. And then new for us this last year, we became a qualified charitable organization for the Arizona charitable tax credits. So that is a dollar for dollar tax credit on your Arizona state taxes. And so you can claim that by making a donation. I believe for single, it's up to $421. And then for married filers, it's $841. So there's some more information on our website, rootsandroads.org/donations. And as always, please contact your tax advisor, to get more information. But our QCO code is what you will need. That's the 22655. And you would do that on Form 321. And with that, we will conclude our evening. Please do look out for our post-session email. It will have the link to the video as well as the survey. And we just wish you guys all a good night. Thanks for joining us.